innovation to reach net zero emissions with Magnolia Tovar and Martin Schifferings. Magnolia is a chemical engineer with more than 22 years of experience in the energy sector in more than 20 countries. She has expertise in energy transition projects, including energy optimization and renewable energy integration and zero carbon fuels. She has extensive experience in consulting, business development, due diligence, and management of large consulting projects. Together with Magnolia is Martin. He has more than 15 years of experience in management and organization. He is the Director of Operations and Development at Future Cleantech Architects. Let's welcome Magnolia and Martin.
Yes, this.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to our talk. Much appreciated. Before we get started, we just want to give thanks to the EA community for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to share this presentation with you and get engaged on discussing this topic. So thank you very much, and thank you to Bram and Doneer Effectief. Much appreciated. So, okay, let's just get started. Who are we? We're a climate innovation think tank. So our work is based on three principles. We are independent, non-profit, and science-based. So what do we do exactly? We conduct research and analysis on hard-to-abate sectors of the economy, and we identify the clean tech gaps, let's say the gaps that are in technology and also in policy, and then we develop actionable policy recommendations to implement those so that we can adopt clean technology. So I know it's a lot, but we'll explain it more in the next 25 minutes. Okay, so we all would like to do our best to reduce our footprint, carbon footprint, and emissions. So we talk a lot about energy efficiency. We're going to implement energy efficiency to reduce the emissions, and we're going to also do behavioral changes, right? So imagine, in 2050, the world will continue growing, and in 2050, we have implemented all the strategies you can imagine to reduce energy demand. We have insulated buildings, we have recycled all that we can, and then we apply levying congestion so that polluting cars will not enter the cities. So what percentage of the emissions do you think we will be able to reduce? So let's say, number one, 5%. Who thinks 5%? How about the next one, 19%? All right, see some hands here and there. How about 30%? All right, and the last one, 50% of the emissions, the CO2. All right, 50%, see some hands there. Well, actually, if we implement a lot of behavioral changes and energy efficiency improvements, we can only reduce 19% of the energy that we consume. So that's not a lot, and that calls for other solutions that we need to implement, which is why we're here to talk about it.
Yes, because we are facing a major challenge, right? The world is off track. We have climate goals, and if you look at that curve, that's increasing rather steeply. And even if we implement all that we have right now, it will be very difficult to meet these goals. So we need sustainable solutions, and we need to act fast. But we just learned that there's only so much we can do as individuals. So Magnolia, help us out here. How are we dealing with this? What are we doing?
All right, so the chart that we see here is the emissions that we have today. You see 20 and 20, 40 giga of CO2 emissions per year. And we said that by 2050, we want to get to net zero, correct? That's zero emissions by 2050. So the light area that you see here are emissions that we can reduce with technology that we have today. Think about electric vehicles, for example. We could reduce a lot of the emissions. Think about heating pumps for our homes. it's technology that we need to implement, but that we have today. But the blue at the bottom is the hardest problem. So those are sectors where we might not have all the solutions that we need, and that's where we work on. So what are those sectors exactly? Well, think about steel. Steel we produce today with coal, and we need to transition to other feedstocks to produce clean steel. Think about aviation, for example. Yes, we might be able to fly on electric planes, but they have a very limited ratio, so we could not go very far. Plus, the batteries are very heavy and take a lot of space. So we need other solutions there. Cement, we need a lot of cement because the world is growing, and then we need technologies to reduce the cement emissions, and the chemical sector as well, and shipping, and we're going to talk more about there. But these are the sectors of the emissions where we don't have all the solutions, or the solutions are at very early stages or implementations, or we don't even have the infrastructure, because even if you can electrify some big factories, you might not have the transmission that is required to get electricity there. So that's the reason why at Future Cleantech Architects we focus exclusively on hard-to-abate sectors. There are a lot of NGOs and other organizations working on electric vehicles, but we said, okay, we're going to talk and work on these hard-to-abate sectors: shipping, aviation, cement, and electricity generation. Because when you look deeper at all of these sectors, electricity is like the common line that is connecting all of them.
Exactly. And well, let's just do that. Let's look at electricity or the energy system in a more broader sense with a little bit more of detail. Look at what exactly the problems or the challenges are that we are facing and what potential solutions we have at hand. As you can see, and you saw that earlier already, electricity makes up for 26% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really a huge factor. And we have renewables, but they come with challenges. And Magnolia will tell us a bit more what these are and what we need to do.
So what you look at here is the world today and historic, how much electricity and 1,000 terawatt energy we have consumed and where we head in. And you would say, well, 2050, that's a lot of electricity. Can we deploy energy efficiency? Well, yes, we can, but the world is growing very fast, right? It took us 11 years to go from 7 billion to 8 billion people. So the world is growing, and a growing world needs energy. So as you can see here, we're going to generate a lot of our energy with solar and wind. And one of the reasons why is because those are very clean energy sources, of course, and they have received a lot of political and societal support. But they come with their challenges. And the challenges are that they are intermittent, and that means that the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. So we have problems on a daily basis, but also on a seasonal basis. So the red areas that you see there are periods where there's not enough energy to cover our energy demand. The demand is the line that you see over there. And there are periods where we have more energy than what we need, but they don't always match. So they have created problems on a daily basis, but also on a seasonal basis. Think about the wind. In the winter might be very strong, but not in the summer, or the sun will shine very strong in the summer, but not during the winter years. So we need solutions to address this intermittency of the energy. And then here, if you think about the energy system of the future, we have several components. It's just like a jigsaw puzzle. You need the intermittent energy that is being generated, and then we need flexibility tools. We need energy storage, we need thermal energy storage, we need demand response. But in addition to that, we need clean, firm power. And clean, firm power is a reliable source of constant energy that is clean and that can be supplied to balance the intermittency of the grid. What are clean, firm power? Like hydro. Think about hydro, but there's also innovative hydro done in rivers right now. Germany is doing quite a lot of work on that, so that's very interesting. Advanced nuclear, it's likely to be part of the equation. We need biomass, but that's very limited, and sometimes sustainability needs to be assessed. And then we also have geothermal and advanced geothermal. So we need those sources of clean, reliable energy.
Right. And if you look at the next sector, transport, as we learned from the introduction, is an issue. And if we look just at aviation, we would like to start with another quick quiz, which is how many of you have ever boarded a plane? Which is almost everyone. Now, let me add another question to that. How many of you need to board a plane to visit their family or to go back home? Which is also quite some people in the room.
So, almost everyone here has ever boarded a plane. Now we're going to ask the following question. We're 8 billion in the world, a little bit more. And what is the percentage of the world population that has never boarded a plane? Never, ever. So let's get started. 40%? Who thinks 40%? 50% of the world? Next one. 70%? Majority 70%. Next one, 80%. Okay, I think it's a tie. Well, that's correct. It's 80%. So today, air travel is a dream for most of the world population, with about 80% of the people never have ever flown into a plane. So as the global south develops, more people are going to fly. So even if we attempt to fly less, we're going to expect that a big part of the world will fly. And that calls for sustainable solutions for the aviation sector. So we need to find a way to make flying sustainable.
So yes, if we look at the figures within transport, if we look just at aviation, it makes up for about 2.5% of global emissions. And as Magnolia said, this is like the status quo. We are in a very lucky situation here in Central Europe that a lot of us had the possibility to board a plane. And there's lots of good things that come with flying, but there's lots of problems. And we will take a look at the problems and then also offer some solutions.
So we all know about CO2 emissions when flying, but how many people know also that we have a problem called contrails? Okay, I see some hands here, and contrails are the aviation hidden emissions, the non-CO2 emissions. So you can see when a plane is flying, you see like two lines that are left on the sky. Well, think about those two as little droplets of water that they let's say they are generated with the exhaust of the plane, and because it's really cold, you get some condensation, and they trap heat. It's just like a warm blanket that you put around your body, and then the blanket is not warm, but it keeps the heat of your body there. And these are like what contrails are, and they are 56% of the problem of the aviation sector, and that is they're not even legally binding targets to reduce those emissions. So we work on contrails, and that's very important. And the good news is that it can be solved for rerouting flights, so choosing other regions, but it's a major challenge for the industry to implement this. In addition to that, you have other emissions. Sorry, Martin, just 1 second. Like sulfur emissions and nitrogen emissions. So aviation is not only CO2. Just keep that in mind. That's very important. Okay, so what solutions do we have? Because this is all the problems, so let's talk about the solutions. Okay, so maybe we have an animation here. Let's see if it works. And if not, I'm happy to go that.
Push play, please.
If you push again, Martin, let's see. Okay, yeah, there you go. So how about for a short flight? Let's see, 500 kilometers. Yeah, we could use electric planes, but that's not the majority of the flights. And it requires further technology breakthroughs. Think about the batteries, and it has a lot of advantages, but it's very limited. Well, let's go a little bit farther, and we have hydrogen planes. Yes, it's also possible, but we still need to innovate. We need to change how we do things. The sector is very conservative. Plus, we have a problem. Where are we going to get the hydrogen from? I mean, to produce green hydrogen, we need clean energy, and we don't have enough energy, right? An example, Europe is the largest oil and gas importer of the world, so there's a challenge there. And then the solution for very long flights is sustainable aviation fuels, and these are drop-in fuels. That means that you can substitute fossil fuels, fossil jet fuel, with sustainable aviation fuels made from, it could be animal fat, it could be in a synthetic way with vegetable oils, etc. But you have major challenges there. And one of the challenges is the electricity that you need to produce this, the hydrogen, and where are you going to get the carbon from? Because you need a sustainable carbon source. So those are major challenges, and we work on those. And the next one, yes. So now we have another sector.
Yes. So as we said in the introduction, we look at transport. Basically, we focus on two topics, which are the most pressing things. One is aviation, the other is shipping. Shipping meaning heavy maritime shipping, basically, which, as you can see, makes up an equally huge part of global emission as aviation, and comes with its own maybe similar, maybe other challenges. Magnolia, let's talk about that.
Yeah, shipping is a challenge. It's a very challenging sector to decarbonize because we do most of the trade by shipping. I mean, we don't think about it when we order something and gets delivered, but a lot of the things that we consume today are delivered by shipping. Think about food, for example. If shipping would be a country, it would be Germany. 1.2 times all the emissions that Germany produces. So that's the largest European economy. And we have a challenge with shipping because we use the most, let's say, very dirty oil from refineries, what is left after you have taken the petrol and the diesel and the naphtha, and then you're left with the heavy fuel oil. And that's what we use. It's called bunkering fuel, and it's very cheap, has made shipping relatively cheap to transport goods, but it's very difficult to find a substitute. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, because ships that we're building today will be in operation for 25 years, sometimes more, 30. So if we build one ship today, let's say, and put it on the water, it would be operating with bunkering fuel, meaning heating oil, for 25 years, 30 years. And we don't have a lot of time to reach net zero, right? We're supposed to do it in 2050. So this is where we are today. The ships in operation, most of them are heating oil, and only a tiny percentage is a sustainable fuel, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about those. And then if you look at the ships this is the one are in operation today, and this is the one that are being ordered that will be operating for the next 25 years. Only a minority of it will be, and this is where we need to be. We should be here. All the ships that we're building today should be alternative fuels. What are the alternative fuels? Well, ammonia is considered an alternative fuel, but then again, you need hydrogen to produce it. Methanol, green methanol could be another option, but the problem is that you need sustainable carbon to produce it. And it's not like you take carbon from the industry and then produce the fuel, because you just shift the emissions. You don't emit it at the industry, but you emit it at the ship, right? At the transport sector. So ammonia, methanol is another option, and then hydrogen. But hydrogen has also its challenges. So we have a lot of challenges to decarbonize this sector, but if you take something away from here, it's a fuels problem, and a fuels problem is an indirect electricity problem as well.
Okay. Moving on to our next and the last topic or subtopic that we brought is the construction sector, which has its own very concrete problems, pun intended. Because if you look at this graph, you see that cement production makes up for 4.4% of global emissions alone. If you look at the entire sector, it's almost 11%. And that, of course, comes with challenges. And we get back to what we said initially, what you said, Magnolia, the world is growing, right? And we cannot tell other countries, developing countries, sorry, you cannot use concrete anymore because we've used up all of our credit already. So we need solutions for that as well. What to do?
Yeah, this is a very interesting problem because we don't think about it, right? Concrete is not that sexy when we talk about it. However, it's like foundational for our economies. Even if you think, oh, we're going to decarbonize transport and we're going to build more trains. Well, we need concrete because we need the sleepers that are used when you build the rails, that give us stability and are needed for that. Houses, schools, hospitals, buildings. I mean, in the Netherlands, we have a housing crisis and we need to build more, and building more means more concrete. And concrete, you have two problems. One of them is the electricity that you use to produce it, the fuel. Right now it's natural gas or high pollutant fuels, not ideal. So you need to change that. That's about 40% of your emissions. But the rest, 60%, are just emissions from the concrete, that the process itself will release CO2. So, yeah, even if you use the cleanest fuel of the world, you still have that CO2. And you say, well, we're going to take that CO2 and we're going to put it under the North Sea. Can we do that? We don't have the infrastructure to do that. Well, we're going to use it for other materials. Yeah, but technology might not be super mature yet. So we have a big challenge here. And think of the global south that is developing. Well, if we look at how much we have to build in the world, because we're growing, the population is growing, it's the equivalent of building 4 times the infrastructure of Germany on a yearly basis. So recycling will not get us there. That's the point. So we need to find ways to decarbonize the production of this. How can we solve it? Well, we put together a little equation here, and it says, well, first of all, emissions is equals to the demand for concrete, cement use by the concrete that you use, because you need cement to make concrete, and reduce the cement emissions intensity. Okay, number 1 is use concrete more efficiently. We could use less. We could be more efficient, but we need to implement standards, and we have a big policy gap there, and that's part of the work that we do. We need standards to just use concrete more efficiently. Sometimes we use too much and it's not needed. Then the other one is to reduce cement versus concrete. So how much cement are we going to put in concrete? Well, we could optimize that, but then again, we need policy that needs to be enacted to do that. And the last one is to reduce the cement emissions intensity. So we need to eliminate the heat emissions that we use to produce concrete. You need like very, very high temperatures, so we need to reduce that, reduce the fuel source, the emissions of the fuel source, and then use modern innovative process where you use that CO2 to produce another material. That's an idea, and then capture the remaining emissions, and then maybe just use sequestration, carbon capture and sequestration.
So we would like to close our presentation almost on time with the call to action, because we said initially there's only so much we can do, but what we can do, and we heard that already today, is you can actually help us and many other organizations who are working in this segment to close these remaining innovation gaps. And how you can do that is to engage in high-impact, evidence-based climate philanthropy. And there's many organizations, we only listed a few here. There's many more that do this kind of stuff, that have climate funds, that make sure that funding is directed and channeled into these directions. And we really think that this is something to contribute to significant impact. And if you allow us, and if you feel that what we do is convincing and good, you can also, of course, support us directly. We're also very thankful for these organizations that are supporting us. Some are in the room. Thank you very much. I think we can close this by saying thanks again for the opportunity to present our work. We did not want to talk as much about us as an organization. We have an office hour in an hour from now, so feel free to come by. We'll be glad to answer any questions there might be and to connect. And yes.
For your question and answers, we don't have time, but in 30 minutes, there will be an office hour at Polar Area Solar. So if you are curious more about it, head on to their office hour. Thank you so much, Magnolia and Martin, for a wonderful
Thank you very much.
talk.
When I see you on stage, I am face.